The lock clicks before the crying stops. 12:10. The kettle dies. The house listens. Not loud, not brief, not normal. I'm holding a plate that looks like care. Apple, yogurt, bread, and the stairwell answers with metal meeting metal, practiced and final. The quiet that follows doesn't soothe. It warns. If any of this already feels too familiar, if your place also holds its breath at a certain minute, tell me where you are right now and where you're watching from. City, couch, train, kitchen sink. I want to know how your rooms sound at 12:10. Lunch is ready, I say into the careful air. Nothing answers but the oven timer, blinking its red colon like an eye I don't trust. The crying thins to a hiccup, returns, thins again. In some houses, the clock outranks the child. The clock is tidy. The child tells the truth even when they try not to. On the hall table, a paper calendar idles under a pen that never has ink. Colored stickers mark clubs and quiet time like tiny flags set in soft ground. Today's square is blank. Blank isn't neutral. Blank is an alibi. A bus exhales beyond the front garden. Rain combs the gutter with patient fingers. Upstairs, fabric rubs fabric, the sound a child makes when they're trying to be brave for your sake. Another click from the same hand on the same lock. Not fumbled. Rehearsed. 12:11 slides into 12:12. I reset the timer to 5 minutes and say it out loud because sound draws a line. 5. In kitchens like this, time is a tool. You can stir with it, measure with it, or bruise with it if you're careless. I'm not bruising anyone with time today. I carry the plate to the threshold and stop. The Ring camera by the front door watches nothing happen and keeps a perfect copy of it. Down the corridor toward the child's room, there's no camera at all. A blind spot, a missing tooth in a careful smile. Every house has one place where truth walks on tiptoe. The crying softens to a wet breath, a swallow, a silence pretending to be mercy. Hunger isn't dramatic. Hunger is patient. It sits on a low stool and waits while adults prove a point. I picture a small face at the top of the gray stairs, salt-bright cheeks, stubborn chin, learning a rotten lesson. A rule can be used like a lock. Lunch is ready. I try again, softer. Only the second hand answers. The smell of laundry soap drifts down the stairwell, citrus and approval, like a report card framed on a wall. Houses with rules are always ready for inspection. I set the plate on the sideboard and square the corners of a dish towel because my hands want to make order where they can. The apple shines like it's trying. The bread looks honest. The yogurt waits like a promise. Proof of care, lined up against proof of control. That space between them is where families get lost. A chair leg whispers across wood upstairs, half muzzled by a rug. I touch the banister. It's warm, as if the last hand never left. 12:13 arrives without apology. The tea is already cooling in its cup. The rain turns from stitches to mist. The minute tries to pass itself off as harmless. Another click. Same weight. Same timing. Whoever's turning that key isn't solving a problem. They're making a point. I lift my chin and let the house see me looking. Sometimes you don't need a confrontation. You need a witness. I take 3 steps toward the stairs, stop, and listen for a grown-up voice. A smoothing tone, a simple sentence that says we're meeting needs, not managing optics. Nothing. Just the drip, the tick, the low hum, as if the house is practicing normal until it gets it right. I go back to the counter and cut the apple thinner, boats for a small mouth that might not feel like steering. I line the slices in a clean fan. I steady my breathing. In this house, I am the timekeeper. If the clock lies, I won't. If 1210 in your place ever sounds like something tidy pretending to be kind, tell me where you are and where you're watching from. Living room, bus seat, office break room. Tell me how your rooms sound when the minute hand hits the habit. The house always blushes a little after lunch. Steam on the window, crumbs like confetti, routine settling back onto its haunches. I lay the plate where small hands can reach it without ceremony. Bread trimmed, apple fanned, yogurt waiting with its quiet patience. I slide the kitchen timer to a friendly number and let it talk to the room for me. Tick, not scold. Tempo, not threat. Colors first, I say, like it's a game we invented together. I set the crayons in a shallow bowl, red, blue, yellow, green. She counts them under her breath, then counts them again just to check if the world will be kind twice in a row. I've learned not to cheer too big at the first victories. The right size praise makes room for the next win. We do a gentle inventory every day. It's not official, but it's ours. What do we see? What do we hear? What do we feel? She taps the table. Wood. She taps her shirt. Soft. She taps her chest. Thump, thump. She smiles without showing teeth, like the idea of smiling is practicing in the wings. I pour water into a cup with a steady hand, aiming for just enough, the way a conductor lifts a baton when a section needs confidence more than volume. At 12:20, we move to the window. The rain has organized itself into strings. A double-decker pulls a smear of red across the street. I give her a new word to pocket alongside the usual ones. Pattern, I say. A pattern is a thing that repeats. She tries it on with her mouth like it might be spicy. Pattern. She points at the raindrops and nods as if she's discovered a secret handrail on a slippery stair. I plate halves of the sandwich and leave the other half whole because options are a marinade for trust. She eats the triangles first. Always the triangles. I don't ask why. Some roads are stronger when you walk them quietly. Between bites, we trade small numbers. 2 buses, 4 birds, 3 chimneys, one of them with a brave old antenna that should have retired by now. The door to the hall is open. The air is open. The rules are flexible for the moment. I keep my voice in the middle register where confidence lives. After lunch, we'll draw, I say. The crayons agree by doing their little roll in the bowl. I wipe a stray crumb into my palm and feel her watching, cataloging the gesture. Kids learn how the world works from the way you handle tiny messes. We have a ritual I never announce but always honor, the thank you lap. One slow walk through the rooms after a meal, noticing what helped. Chair, thank you for holding up, she says today with complete seriousness. Kettle, thank you for singing. We thank the fridge, the dish towel, the rain, the clock, quietly, so the clock doesn't get ideas. When adults turn objects into enemies, kids hide in the spaces between. When you treat objects like helpers, the spaces become bridges. Back in the kitchen, I slide paper in front of her and set a pencil down like a promise. We start with a line that isn't anything yet. She pulls it rightward. I echo the motion on my own sheet. We keep it slow, my line never leading, never lagging. She adds a second line, then a third. A house takes shape. Roof, window, door. The kind of door that opens easily. Tree, I offer. She nods. I draw a trunk with room for errors. She draws circles like clouds around it. Apples. She looks at me, waits to see if I want the circles to be something else, then decides without asking. Apples it is. We color them red, consciously not the same red as the bus. She makes 3 little marks near the door. I ask nothing about them, but I note the pattern. 3. She always gives 3 to the door. The phone buzzes in the hall with a text, one of those pings that tries to pull a room off course. I glance at the screen and leave it face down. If I leave it face down, she learns the lesson I mean. not the one I didn't intend. Your turn to pick the next thing, I say. She taps her own chest like a lighthouse signal. Herself. Okay, I say. What do we draw that looks like you? She flattens a palm to her hair and smiles wider now, teeth still inside but closer to the edge. We take a break between drawing and nap because transition is a hill and you climb it better with water. I fill the cup halfway and hand it over with the same 2 words every time. You choose. She has exactly 2 sips, places the cup in the exact same ring on the table as yesterday, and waits to see if the universe explodes. It does not. This is what trust looks like in a house that tests it. Nothing exploding. There's a tiny ritual I learned years ago from a grandmother who knew things. Check a child's temperature with the back of your hand while pretending to admire their art. I do that now, pretending the paper needs smoothing, warm but not worrying. I ask if her tummy is a clock or a mountain today. She whispers, clock, then quickly adds, small clock. I give the clock a small job, finish the apple, then it can rest. We read 1 page from a book that's sturdy but not bossy. The page smells like linen and time. She tracks the lines with her finger, not to read the words, but to keep them from escaping. When a character says, please, she pauses and waits for me to say it too. We say it together. Please is a bridge, too. I set a blanket over her legs at the couch, light enough to keep air in, heavy enough to persuade the fidgets to take a nap of their own. 5 minutes, I tell the timer again, so break doesn't turn into absence. The house settles like a cat and pretends it never did anything else. Her eyes half close, then half open, then choose the softer half. A squeak of the hall floorboard registers in the corner of my mind. I answer it with a quiet glance at the clock, which behaves itself for once. When she slides into that small, safe place between awake and asleep, I do the work that supports the ritual without making a show of it. Wipe the table, rinse the cup, reset the bowl of crayons with the points all facing up like a small, colorful army ready to be polite. I write 3 words on the corner of my notebook. Triangles, apples, door, then close it. Notes keep me honest. The world doesn't change because I write it down, but I do. She sighs in her sleep, a peaceable creature on a small couch in a small house with a loud clock. I match the sigh with one of my own, quiet enough to stay in our weather system. When she wakes, we'll finish the house with a path that leads somewhere easy. We'll draw a door that opens toward the world, not against it. We'll keep the rituals, not because rules matter more than needs, but because the right rituals make needs visible. Upstairs, a board settles and remembers it's a board. The house pretends to be a house. For now, that's enough. For now, the hour holds. The first time she says my name, it's in the nice voice reserved for front doors and neighbors. "Oh, you must be the new one," she sings, soft as toast. She steps into the kitchen with rain still shining on her sleeves and a smile that lands like a sticker. Neat, removable, not quite the shape of the surface it's on. "Lunch went well?" she asks, glancing not at the child but at the counter, the sink, the crumbs auditioning for a crime scene. Her eyes do a quiet inventory, sponge aligned, tea mug rinsed, timer returned to its little dock. The clock gets a nod. I don't. "It did," I say. "Triangles first, then apples." I keep my hands still. People who love rules count fidgeting as evidence. "Good," she says. "Structure is kindness." It sounds reasonable the way a locked door sounds safe from the inside. She takes the dish towel, folds it into a perfect square, lays it on the rail, then adjusts it by exactly the width of a breath. We like things on time. We, like there's a parliament. The child slides into view at the kitchen threshold, rubbing sleep prints from her cheek. The woman's smile widens by one tooth. "There you are," she says, low and bright, public voice. She kneels and opens her arms. The child doesn't step in. The woman waits one polite beat, then rises without blinking and reaches for the child's wrist as if it's a handle on a suitcase. Her fingers look delicate. They are not. They close in a way that leaves an outline, red blooming under skin like a secret signature. "We don't drag our feet," she murmurs. Private voice. Then the public one returns so quickly it feels like a trick of the light. "Let's wash hands for snack." I catch the child's eyes. She does the small, brave nod children do when they've decided to be easy for the adults. She vanishes down the hall with the woman, quiet as a thought you're trying to lose. When they come back, the woman has a fresh towel draped over her arm like a waiter who intends to grade you for ordering. "What time did you serve?" she asks in a tone that says she already knows and will be disappointed. "Just after 12:10, I say. "Ah." She looks at the clock in a way that suggests it owes her money. "We serve at 12 sharp. It keeps meltdowns contained." The pause is a blade you don't see until your sleeve is shorter. "Noted," I say, because there are fights you win by scheduling them later. She turns the timer so its face is away from the room, as if the room might cheat by reading it. Then she reaches past me to reposition the plate drying on the rack. She leaves it 2 inches to the left, and somehow the entire kitchen shifts with it. The child hovers in the doorway, hands now very clean, wrists quieter but still telling on the last 5 minutes. I lift the crayon bowl with my most neutral hands. "We were drawing houses," I offer. The woman's smile finds my mouth and stops there. "How quaint." She removes one crayon, red, and sets it aside. "We avoid red between meals," she says, not looking at the child. "It stimulates." She picks up a green instead and taps it against the paper. "Trees are calm." The child's face does that careful flattening children use when they want to please faster than they can understand. She reaches for the green and draws a line that refuses to become a tree. The woman watches, satisfied, like a hallway mirror. The kettle clicks its throat clear. I move to refill the mug I abandoned earlier. The woman follows the movement with her gaze. "We don't leave cups," she says, fingernail tapping the counter, friendly drumbeat. "We finish and we tidy." She says we as though tidying were a team sport and I'm on probation. "Sure," I say. I rinse, wipe, place. It's a sequence I could do blindfolded. I wonder how often she rehearses her own. When the child reaches for the yogurt, the woman slides it an inch farther away. "We try not to snack after lunch," she says. "It confuses the body." She smooths the child's hair in a way that is almost affectionate and entirely about obedience. "Don't we, love?" The child's eyes flick to me. This is where children learn whether truth has allies. I say nothing with my mouth. I say plenty with my face. Later, I promise. Adults prove points. We can prove patterns. "Schedule for the week," the woman continues, extracting a printed grid from a folder that smells like new plastic and rules. "Clubs, playdates, quiet hours. We've introduced an additional quiet block in the afternoons. She gets wildly overstimulated." She keeps the paper angled toward herself, as if I haven't earned the right to read the plan I'll be expected to execute. "Wildly," I echo. The child draws a small rectangle by the door of her house. 1, 2, 3 lines. The number she gives doors. She presses a bit too hard. The paper frowns. The woman leans, changes our kitchen light to a cooler setting. "Warm tones make people sloppy," she explains, as if we're in a lab and she's paid by the hypothesis. The room goes a degree bluer. The child's skin does too. A phone buzzes on the hall table. The woman snatches it up before the second vibration, reads, smiles a thin smile reserved for witnesses. "Dad will be late this week," she says cheerfully, while her thumb types something I do not get to see. "Lots of commitments." The child's pencil pauses, then continues. The rectangle gets an extra line. 4, today. The door is learning how to be more door. Let's keep voices low before dinner, the woman adds, not because anyone is loud, but because rules like to declare themselves relevant. She picks up the calendar and moves a sticker from Thursday to Tuesday. Speech therapy changes. Also no cuddles before meals. It interrupts digestion. Digestion, I repeat, and feel like I've been handed a word that doesn't match the picture. Understood. She glides back to the child, kneels again, one hand on the small shoulder in a way that reads as loving from far away and like possession up close. We want you to be easy, she murmurs into the hair. Private voice again. Easy makes everything better. The child nods because children are loyal to the architecture they're built inside. The woman rises, turns to me, and turns the smile back on. We simply adore her, she says. We're very careful. Careful like a trap, I think, and check the thought for sharp edges. I put the green crayon back into the bowl and take out blue, offering it to the child without commentary. She takes it like a secret handshake. The woman notices, files it somewhere behind her eyes, says nothing. On her way out, the woman flicks the hallway lock with a casual finger, a pianist brushing a familiar key. Click. The sound writes its own caption. Because I can. She pauses in the doorway, checks the timer, then recalibrates it by 2 unnecessary minutes. Enough to be in charge, not enough to be charged. Structure is kindness, she reminds the air, this time without looking at either of us. When she's gone, the temperature under my sternum drops a degree. The child exhales in a slow, audible letter. I draw a line next to hers, a roof that leans a little, imperfect on purpose. Trees can be blue today, I say, and we both act like that's a normal thing to say. The house resumes pretending to be a house. The timer ticks like it's taking attendance. On the child's wrist, the red has quieted to a memory, a neat outline that will be gone in an hour and remembered for years. I make a mental note I don't need a notebook for, polite in public, clinical in private. The kind of kindness that leaves marks you can't photograph. The first excuse arrives wrapped in care. She's a bit poorly today, the message says, blue bubble floating over the hall table like a small law. No emoji, just certainty. We are to keep things quiet. We are to avoid stimulation. We are to postpone Dad's drop-in until she's herself again. I read it twice and then read the room instead. She's herself right now, hair in a half-slide, eyes steady, drawing a ladder with even rungs as if she's auditioning for metaphor. We'll make soup, I tell her. Quiet can be kind when it belongs to you. An hour later, another rule arrives. No cuddles before meals, the woman says lightly, intercepting a hug with a hand that lands like a lid. It confuses digestion. She says digestion the way a traffic warden says zone. We place the hug back on the shelf and pretend it will keep. That evening, a sticker migrates on the calendar. Playtime traded for quiet time with a pen mark that looks official because it's straight. I ask, should I let Dad know about the change? The woman smiles the smile that's mostly teeth. Already handled, she says, thumbs busy under the table. A minute later, the phone pings with a new blue bubble on Dad's screen. Bad day. She's struggling. Tomorrow better. Tomorrow isn't better. Tomorrow is the same sentence in a different shirt. She's still poorly. She needs routine. Let's not overwhelm. The child isn't overwhelmed. She's undermet. When she hears quiet time, she sits so still you could use her for a spirit level. This is how children help adults keep their stories tidy. Locks start practicing more. Click when the child is in her room for reading rest. Click when the woman takes a call she doesn't want echoing down the stairwell. click when the house needs, suddenly and for no visible reason, to be proud of its privacy. I start carrying a notebook, not to win an argument, but to keep myself honest. Times, not opinions. 12:10, crying. 12:40, message to Dad. Tired today. 3 o'clock, quiet time extended. 5:20, door locked during phone call. There are patterns you feel in your bones before you can prove them. Bones are early warning systems. The child and I redesign our afternoon to survive the new rules without endorsing them. If cuddles are banned before meals, we invent long sleeves, sitting shoulder to shoulder so our sleeves touch, and nobody can say it was a hug. If quiet time steals playtime, we do silent building, blocks laid without words, gravity applauding for us. If Dad is delayed, we draw maps that include him anyway. 3 little marks by the door, then a path through the garden to a stick figure with a briefcase and gentle ears. One afternoon, I prep for a visit that is supposed to happen. The floor knows something the phone doesn't. It holds excited footsteps like a secret. I put out the good cups, the ones that don't shout when they clink. I slice apples into boats and let them look like a harbor waiting for a ship. The woman watches, amused. "You're quite optimistic," she says. "We'll see how he's doing." Minutes later, running late, might miss bedtime. The message lands like a quiet insult. The woman shows me the screen as if I might need help with the conclusion. See, hard week for him. I nod because nodding is often the only safe verb. The child hears the word late without anyone saying late. She tucks her mouth in and redraws the 3 lines by the door, press, press, press until the paper bruises. I say, we can save the apples for breakfast, as if breakfast could bribe time into fairness. In the newly expanded quiet block, the woman adds a second plate to the table, rules to share with dinner. Voices low, eyes on plates, no questions during bites. I can make peace with quiet, and even with structure. I cannot make peace with quiet that covers evidence. The child eats obediently and looks at me only in the commas between rules. I ask for a small change. Could Dad read the bedtime page, even on speaker? The woman's smile slides off its hook and clatters behind her eyes. "Screens before bed are poor hygiene," she says. "We're very careful." She offers apples the child chose earlier and calls it a compromise. When the father does appear, mid-week, he arrives in the tense shadow of his own lateness. The house puts on its company face. Lamps warm up. The lock relaxes. The child stands like a lighthouse, and then remembers lighthouses do not run. He lifts her, good arms, familiar chest. The woman hovers at the edge like a tax. "Careful," she says with a laugh that polishes concern into authority. "She's delicate today." Delicate becomes the new noun for our house. Not sick, not sad, not hungry. Delicate. Delicate children cannot handle surprises. Delicate children need schedules more than faces. Delicate children have to go to bed early when Dad is 5 minutes late because rules love clean math. The next day, the speech therapy sticker moves again. "They had a cancellation," the woman says, which is a sentence that contains permission to be believed. She adds a second quiet block with the brisk pleasure of a person achieving inbox 0. Dad's lunch drop-in is rewritten to next week in a note so small you could miss it if you wanted to. At bath time, the child hums a song with only one note in it. "What's that?" I ask softly. She stops humming, thinks like it might be a test, then says, "Waiting." I hear it for what it is. Vocabulary learned in a house where the doorbell doesn't reward effort. The woman begins correcting in advance. "We don't splash," she says before water hits skin. "We don't shake hair," before the towel arrives. "We don't cry," before anything hurts. The trick of control is to put rules at the start of sentences so you can claim all the endings were inevitable. I add to my notes. No cuddles before meals, no questions during bites. Delicate. Quiet block extended. Door locked during calls. Dad delayed, then rescheduled, then gently scolded for the stress of rescheduling. The pattern is forming a shape I know too well, a loop that keeps two people apart while insisting it's for their good. One evening I try a test as gentle as a feather. If he's late 20 minutes, could we make the bedtime page the last thing, not the first? The woman rearranges the dish towel by the width of a breath. We're keeping her calm, she says. She spirals. She says spiral like a diagnosis she printed at home. Bed is better when she hasn't been wound up. Wound up by her father's voice, she means. Wound up by belonging. I smile as if I've learned something and tuck the lesson where I keep splinters I'll remove later. The child and I keep practicing our counter rituals. During quiet, we whisper bravery to the blocks. During no cuddles, we let socks touch like conspirators. During delicate, we learn heavier words. Capable, steady, brave. She tries brave on and looks taller inside it. By the end of the week, the hallway smells like lemon and control. The lock has a new confidence. The calendar looks busy in a virtuous way that would win prizes in certain circles. When I put the child to bed, she asks a question she didn't know she was asking. Do clocks have hearts? She whispers. Only if we give them one, I say, smoothing the blanket. And we don't have to. Downstairs, the phone glows with a draft to Dad that I do not send. She needed an early night. Tomorrow will be better. Better is a word with rubber bones. It bends to fit any promise. I close my notebook and keep the shape of the week in my head. Excuses thin as paper, rules thick as walls. Two versions of the same house living under one roof. One where order protects, one where order divides. The child sleeps between them like a bookmark that keeps adults from losing their place. It starts with portions that look like apologies. Lunch shrinks by a polite centimeter a day. Half a slice less bread. Yogurt traded for a taste. Apple boats promoted to apple slivers shaped like good behavior. We're encouraging her to listen to fullness cues, the woman says, moving the plate a whisper farther from the child's reach. Fullness cues need food to hear themselves. That's the trick. Drawings go brittle next. The house we've been building all week, door with 3 marks, blue tree, path that says someone is coming, returns from the fridge with a corner torn like a bitten ear. Accident, the woman says, dropping it in the bin with the care of a museum curator discarding a counterfeit. The child watches the tear more than the bin, as if the paper might still testify. The calendar continues its quiet migration. Stickers don't move in clumps now. They wander alone, the way people do when they're waiting for buses that never come. Therapy brought forward. Playdate postponed. Dad check-in TBC. The TBC sits there like a shrug, smug as a comma that thinks it's a period. On Tuesday, the kitchen light goes colder again. Doctor says bright light helps regulate, the woman says. She doesn't say which doctor, just doctor, the way some people say science when what they mean is me. A white paper bag appears in the cupboard that used to hold tea. The label wears the pharmacy font that makes everything look official and bored. Just in case she's dysregulated, the woman says gently, almost admiringly, the way people admire storms from indoors. I keep my face a lake. Noted, I say, and I note. She places the bag where it will be visible without being announced, a prop that can claim it was only scenery. Later, when the child turns in her sleep and whimpers, the woman taps the cupboard door with 2 manicured knuckles. We have options, she whispers to the wood, as if the wood deserves reassurance. Food earns new rules that don't look like rules. Let's try light dinners, she suggests. Light dinners means we finish early, which means we start bedtime earlier, which means Dad's might make it becomes, ah well, next time. The plate's center turns into an open field. The child learns how to fold obedience into small bites. I add extra butter to bread when no one is watching. Kids metabolize kindness. The Ring camera captures me rinsing a cup, aligning a sponge, placing a plate. It will be able to prove I was careful. It will not be able to prove anything about upstairs. The corridor to the child's room remains a blind spot, a throat in the middle of the house that swallows evidence whole. I check it with my eyes the way you check a dark window for your own reflection, hoping and not hoping to see yourself. The woman begins labeling feelings for the child the way you label storage bins. You're clingy today. You're too excited. You're fragile this week. The child tries them on like coats that never fit, heavy in the shoulders, tight at the throat. When she reaches for my sleeve before lunch, the woman steers her hand back to the table with a two-finger nudge she probably learned from a training video. Hands to self, she chirps. I can feel the bruise where the chirp lands. I reroute us through small dignities. We invent quiet applause for finishing hard things, fingers drumming the underside of the table where rules can't hear. We choose spoons the way knights choose shields. We read one page aloud and one page silently, like we're switching between languages that live in the same mouth. Somewhere in there, the child laughs, short and startled, like an animal remembering it has lungs. Midweek, the woman wanders through the living room with a jewelry case as if she's a guest in an exhibit about her own life. I seem to have misplaced a bracelet, she says to the air, as though the air is on a performance improvement plan. Silver, she explains. Sentimental, but not in the cheap way. She tucks a strand of hair behind her ear and smiles at the child. We'll have a treasure hunt later, won't we? The child nods because children are gravity compliant. She makes a fine point of not accusing anyone. The not accusing arrives loudly, like a fire drill. I'm sure it will turn up, she says to me with immaculate optimism that can afford to lose. Things get jumbled with little hands. Her eyes visit my pockets the way tourists visit landmarks, briefly with the camera already half raised. After she leaves, I check under cushions with the child because this is what you do when adults seed panic in a room. You bend down to make the horizon close. We find 2 crayons, a crumb that used to be a cracker, and the corner of our torn drawing. No bracelet. The child whispers, maybe it wants to be found somewhere else. The next morning, the child's lunch becomes an art project in negative space. We're trialing smaller portions, the woman announces, as if we signed up for a study. Doctor says grazing is better than gorging. The child is neither grazing nor gorging. She is waiting to be allowed. I name what can be named without starting a war. Small bites, long time, I say, setting the timer where the room can't ignore it. We win exactly 4 minutes back from the abyss. I log them like stolen jewels. Texts to Dad evolve. They're kinder than facts and meaner than truth. She's too tired after therapy. She's overexcited. She's not in the right headspace. The nouns get bigger as the visits get smaller. When he replies with a picture from outside the bus window, London smeared with its own weather, the woman types, best to try tomorrow. Tomorrow is the coat closet where we hang promises to die of fresh air. In the afternoon, the woman accidentally lays out 2 dish towels of the same color, one for drying hands, one for cleaning. She mentions the bracelet again, absent-minded as a trap. Odd, isn't it? How the little things vanish when we're not vigilant? She's very good at sounding like a public service announcement. Later, while the child builds a tower in quiet time, I catch the light on metal by the cleaning caddy and think it's the bristle of a brush. It isn't. It's nothing. Not yet. She starts leaving doors ajar just enough for the word rumor to get through. We're missing a few small items, she tells a neighbor on the step, light voice warming the chill of implication. I'll turn the house upside down, of course. Of course. The neighbor's eyebrows do what eyebrows do. They take notes without writing. In the bath, the child plays librarian, lining up plastic cups and issuing fines for splashes. 10 quiets, she says gravely, handing me a penalty that is also a prize. On the shelf above us, a bottle of lavender, something wears a new sticker. Calming. The house is learning a whole new alphabet where every letter spells obedience. When she sleeps, the woman takes out the white paper bag and turns it in her hands the way magicians turn silk scarves. Just knowing it's there makes me calmer, she says, in the same tone she uses to say, doctor. She returns it to the cupboard like a proof she can produce if the room ever doubts her. By Friday, the pattern has teeth. The rules are thicker, the portions are thinner, the stickers are busier. The calendar looks like a chessboard where only one player gets to move. The child's house drawings grow more careful, as if carefulness could protect a door. Late that afternoon, the woman steps into the kitchen with her museum smile and a sigh that could be sold as compassion. We still haven't found the bracelet, she says. It's sentimental. She opens the cleaning cupboard to reach past the caddy for a sponge, giving me a clear view of the tidy interior. No bracelet, obviously. She closes it with a soft, satisfied click. The kind of click that sounds like a rehearsal finishing on time. I wipe my hands on the towel, the one that matches the other towel, and feel a story trying to grow around me like ivy around a fence. Stories like that don't strangle, they curate. They choose their exhibits, light them flatteringly, and guide guests past the inconvenient wings. The child holds up a drawing for approval. Today she's given the door 5 marks. I don't ask why. I don't need to. Some days a door has to be more door than others. The lock upstairs practices twice for no reason at all. Click, click. The woman says calmly to the air, "We'll do a deep clean tomorrow. Details matter." She smiles at me, bright as a sign. "You don't mind, do you? You're so thorough." I answer with the truth she can't hear. Thorough is how we keep people honest. Her smile doesn't move, but the kitchen does. A half inch to the left, a fraction down. Enough to make room for the next thing she's going to find. Saturday is for deep cleans and polite wars. The woman announces it at breakfast like a bank holiday. "We'll make everything sparkle," she says, and the house straightens its collar. She lines up 2 matching towels, 2 matching sponges, 2 matching alibis. I fill the bucket with warm water and a cap of lemon cleaner. The scent rises like an argument pretending to be fresh air. The child stacks blocks in the living room under quiet play rules that now arrive without being spoken. She builds a door first, always the door, and then a small wall that doesn't connect to anything. "It's practicing," she whispers, as if that makes sense of it. I start on the kitchen floor, squares of vinyl that like to brag about how clean they are. The woman hovers with a chore list on her phone, drifting in and out of the frame like a consultant. "Under the table legs," she reminds me, tapping each leg like a conductor waking an orchestra. "Inside the baseboards." She says baseboards with the relish of someone who enjoys words that make other people tired. We work in parallel. I mop, she inventories. Drawers open and sigh, cabinets open and judge. The cupboard with the white paper bag opens for no reason and closes like a secret that wiped its mouth. When I return the mop to the bucket, the water clouds to a color you could call honest. I steer the bucket toward the utility nook by the back door. "Check the caddy," she calls, voice light, feet already in the hall. "We might be missing a brush." A neighbor's voice floats through the cracked front door, a parcel handoff, and the woman turns her sunny dial to high. "Morning, we're doing a deep clean. Details matter." I push the bucket into the nook and wedge the mop upright. The handle shivers against the wall, settling. The child peeks in, curious about the science of water. "No splashing," I remind her, soft. She nods and retreats like a respectful wave. The woman returns, head tilted, eyes wide with expectant surprise. "Would you mind," she says, "just lifting the mop? I want to see if the base is catching." It's the kind of request you don't say no to because it wears the right shoes. I lift the mop, grip it halfway down the handle to keep the head clear of the water, pivot it to show the base. "Hold, please," she says, and kneels with the calm of someone posing for a catalog. She peers into the bucket. She goes still. Theater doesn't breathe like that. Only execution does. Her hands float up in a gentle mime of shock. "Oh," she says softly, reverently, like the answer key has appeared on the exam. "Oh." The neighbor's voice is still in the doorway. The woman turns her head just enough for the words to travel. "My bracelet," she says, not loud but sculpted. "In the mop bucket." She looks to me, not at me, like a judge addresses the table where evidence rests. That's unexpected. Time does the thing it does when it refuses to help. The child is a statue at the edge of the room, eyes on the bucket, hands pressed flat to her sides, shoulders trying to disappear into themselves. I set the mop down slowly, handle against the wall, no clatter, no drama. The bucket's water holds its breath. At the bottom, glinting like a planted flag, lies a thin loop of bright metal. "I have never," I begin. She lifts a hand in that gracious stopping motion people use when they want credit for restraint. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves." She reaches into the bucket with 2 fingers and plucks the bracelet as delicately as if she were saving a bee from drowning. She lays it on the rim to drip and turns it just so for the neighbor to see the shape and shine. The neighbor's eyebrows do the arithmetic and come up with the sum people always come up with when the set dressing is this good. "Oh dear," they say, which is how Britain forgives itself for believing first and asking second. The woman sighs, heartbreak filtered through professionalism. "Things have been disappearing," she murmurs, giving the air a confident nod. "I always assume misplacement, but this—" She gestures at the bucket. "This is harder to misread." "May I ask, because asking has rules." I pick up the bracelet with a dish towel between skin and metal. It's warm. It didn't get that way from cold water. "Careful," she says, and I can't tell if she means with the jewelry or with my future. We move to the kitchen like a courtroom relocating. She sets the bracelet on the table between us the way officials lay down a line. "I'm not accusing," she says. "I'm observing." She tucks hair behind her ear and smiles the kind of smile you'd wear to donate to charity while watching the receipt print. "Things must be tidy." The child edges closer until her shoes touch the threshold. She doesn't look at me. She looks at my hands the way children look at hands that might give or take. I try to give her my calm face. The calm face has no effect on badges. "I'd like you to step outside for a moment," the woman says, voice as soft as a blanket you don't get to keep. "Just while I check the rest of the cupboard. We'll sort this out." "Outside?" I repeat. "Front door, please." She keeps the smile as she walks ahead of me, lifting the latch for the neighbor to witness how open and aboveboard we are. The air outside is cold, with that London cold that shakes hands as if it has business to discuss. I step onto the threshold with my palms visible the way people do when they know the script isn't written for them. She stands just inside, framed by domestic competence. "We won't make a fuss," she says. "It's just that the bracelet is sentimental." The word rings like a bell used to call dogs. "We'll take a moment." Behind her, the child has placed one palm on the kitchen chair, like staking a claim quietly. Her mouth is a small, straight line. Her eyes are the color rooms get when the lights are dimmed and the door is almost shut. "Of course," I say to the air that is taking notes. The neighbor shifts their weight, interested but pretending not to be. A delivery scooter coughs at the end of the street. Somewhere, a bus decides it is a river. The woman closes the door most of the way, then opens it again a friendly inch. "We'll be quick," she promises through the gap, and the lock says click in a voice that thinks it's whispering. Minutes pass like hearings. When she opens the door wide, her smile has been polished to an executive shine. The bracelet sits on a tissue on the hall table, haloed by cleanliness. "We've decided it's best if you take some time," she says. "I'll transfer the remainder of the week. No need to return." "Fired," the neighbor translates with their eyebrows, one silent subtitle per arch. "For the child's stability," the woman adds, saintly. "Consistency is key." The key turns. It always turns. She hands me my bag, the one I keep packed with snacks and stickers and contingency plans, and thanks me for my service in a tone reserved for people you've already erased. When I look to the child, she looks at her shoes, a reflex you can't teach. "I'll come back with a reference," the woman says to the air, which means she will come back with a story. I step onto the path that leads to the gate that leads to the bus that leads to a less complicated kitchen. The Ring camera watches me make responsible shapes and keeps a perfect copy of them. The corridor to the child's room keeps its secrets. At the gate, I turn. The child has moved to the window. One hand against the glass, 5 small marks on her drawing of a door. She doesn't wave. Some goodbyes pretend to be routines. The front door closes politely. The click is a period. The echo is a lifetime. I come home early without telling anyone. Habit says text first. Doubt says try the door. I choose doubt. The key turns like it always turns, and the house does its practiced impression of innocent. Warm lamp, quiet hall. The clock in the kitchen, too, pleased with itself. "Hello?" I call, the way you call into a museum you accidentally stayed in after closing. Her voice answers first, bright, neighbor safe. "You're early?" The last word bends into a question and then straightens. "Busy day?" "Change of plan," I say, hanging my coat on the hook I always miss on the first try. The living room is tidy like photos are tidy. The toy bin looks curated. On the table, a paper sits under a smooth hand where a crease should be. On the fridge, our daughter's drawing has lost a corner it used to have. "She's resting," my wife says, low and tender, guiding me toward a story. Hard week, delicate. I have learned to swallow certain words and let them dissolve. Today, they stick. Where? Her room, of course. A small laugh that means, of course, where else? "I'll peek," I say. Won't wake her. She steps lightly into my path, then remembers we're domestic and steps aside. "Just a minute," she says, already halfway down the hall, already knocking softly, already letting herself be the one who opens the door. The click is a memory in present tense. "Sleeping," she whispers, finger to lips. "Please, let's keep it calm." Calm is a leash word. I leave the hall and go to the kitchen where calm can't follow. The timer sits face down. The paper calendar has moved a sticker in a way that looks official because it's straight. A little white pharmacy bag lives where the tea used to. Its label stares with that doctor's handwriting the pharmacy prints when no doctor is involved. I lift it, read dosages meant for someone older than a childhood. As needed, the kind of need adults manufacture. She appears in the doorway with that soft focus smile the Ring camera loves. "Tea?" "In a bit," I say, replacing the bag as quietly as if the paper could bruise. "What's this?" "Just in case," she says, breezy. "The GP suggested something mild. She spirals." She's 6. She holds my gaze as if we're playing a game where blinking is surrender. Exactly why we're careful. Care looks different in my head. It looks like soup and story time and clocks that keep promises. I'd like to see her. After she rests. She touches my arm as if I'm the one on the verge of spiraling. If we wake her, she'll be inconsolable. Inconsolable is new. The last 3 weeks were tired, overstimulated, fragile. The adjectives are getting longer as the visits get shorter. "I'll be quiet," I say, and move past the touch like a boat past a buoy. At her door, I knock with my breath. The handle turns under my palm. Not locked. Not this time. The room smells like laundry soap and something approved. She's on her side, eyes open, body stilled the way kids still their bodies when they're trying to be the right answer. Her hand is under her cheek. Her mouth remembers a smile but doesn't attempt one. She blinks once, twice, and then there's the twitch of a chin I know to follow. "Hey, love," I whisper. "Came home early. Wanted to see your new drawings." She nods like a coin nods when it finally stops spinning. I sit on the floor next to the bed so my face isn't far away or high up. She moves her fingers under the pillow, finds mine with 2 taps, decides taps are allowed. "Secret," she breathes, almost inaudible. "What's the secret?" Her eyes visit the door, then the wardrobe, then the small gap between the dresser and the wall. "Cupboard," she says, lips barely moving. "Not this one, the little one." "Show me?" I barely shape the words. She slides from the bed, weight on the outsides of her feet to keep the floor from speaking. We move like conspirators too young for conspiracies. Behind the dresser there's a cutout panel I've never seen. House bones. You could lose a cufflink in there. Or a coincidence. She points. Cloth. I reach into the gap with the kind of caution you use around glass and memory. My fingers find a rag, the sort of clean that means it's been used for the wrong things. Cheap lemon clings to it, the smell of approval. Inside, nested like a dare, is the shape my wife described to me as sentimental but not in the cheap way. Silver, bracelet, dry. "How long?" I ask, though I don't know if I'm asking about the bracelet, the hiding, or the lesson my daughter has been learning about adults. "After mop," she whispers, eyes shiny, voice clinical. She put it, like a game. The floorboard outside complains. My daughter and I become statues. There is a flavor to fear that isn't fear, it's rehearsal. I slide the cloth and bracelet back into the gap, less tidy than before on purpose, so a future me can tell the difference. I pull the dresser a breath's width closer to the wall. I leave the dust disturbed. We stand. She looks relieved and ashamed at the same time, which is how kids look when they think they've broken a rule by telling the truth. "Did she tell you to keep it secret?" She bites her lip in the affirmative way. Then, a correction learned from honest people. Not secret, just quiet. Quiet is a costume. I fold it and set it on the mental chair where I put things I'm done wearing. "Thank you," I say, "for trusting me." We sit on the rug and look at the drawing taped to her bed frame. Door, marks, 5. A new habit. "What are these?" I ask, casual as weather. "Times," she says. "How many?" Her finger taps each mark with the authority of an archivist. 5 times. I don't ask 5 what. I don't make her say it. I know the sound a lock makes when it believes it's a lullaby. When we come out to the hall, the house has repositioned itself. It does that when adults agree on the story offline. The timer faces outward again. The calendar has a fresh sticker for quiet. My wife pours tea like an apology she'll never say out loud. "She's awake?" she asks. "Barely," I say. "We'll have a quiet hour." I take the mug and let the heat find my bones. I let my face be the photo it needs to be until the shutter clicks. Then I go to the front door and check the ring history, flipping through squares of my own lateness, deliveries, the occasional fox. Nothing about the hall. Nothing about wrists. Cameras record what they can reach. My phone buzzes with a text from earlier I hadn't seen. "She's had a long day. Let's aim for tomorrow." It's dated 10 minutes before I walked in. My wife is behind me. Light footsteps, careful voice. Everything okay? Fine, I say, and put the phone in my pocket so my hand has a place to live besides a fist. We keep the hour. I read about a bear who gets lost and finds his way by counting his own footprints backward. My daughter leans against me with the kind of lean that qualifies as architecture. I count too. The clicks I've heard, the blanks on the calendar, the new vocabulary. Delicate, spirals, inconsolable. I hear the way those words close doors. After the book, I put her to bed and sit on the floor again because the floor gives truer answers than chairs. She taps my wrist twice, our code for "Are you listening?" "Lunch," she says, a question trying its best. "Soon," I promise, "and we'll call before we sleep." "Screen?" she asks, almost hopeful, as if hope is a private pet. "Speaker," I say. "We can do speaker." I leave the room and find my wife in the kitchen adjusting the towel by the width of a breath. "Let's call tonight," I say, just to say goodnight with my voice. "Screens before bed are poor hygiene," she answers without turning. "We've talked about this. We'll use the landline," I say, and the sentence tastes like an old movie. "No screen, just sound." A pause, then the smile, public, bright, willing to be reasonable in a way that earns points. "Fine," she says, "but brief." Brief is all I need to test a timeline. I make the call from the hallway while she stands in the doorway of our daughter's room, listening like a chaperone. "Good night, love," I say into the phone, into the air, into the place where trust is supposed to live. "See you tomorrow." "Tomorrow," my daughter repeats, tiny but anchored. The call ends. The door closes soft. The lock does not click. Not this time. In the quiet kitchen, I take out a small notebook I haven't used since exams and write the first line of a math problem I intend to solve. 12:10, crying. 12:12, lock. Mop day, bracelet dry in cloth. Ring blind spot corridor. I underline blind spot. Then I write a sentence I didn't plan to write. I believed you because it was easier. I draw a line through it and write it again without the apology. I start with a timeline because feelings can edit themselves. Numbers don't. I sit at the kitchen table after lights out with a pencil and the stubbornness usually reserved for flat-pack furniture. 12:10, crying. 12:12, lock. 2s, deep clean, bracelet appears in mop bucket. Fry, bracelet dry in cloth behind dresser. Texts to me, sent 10 to 20 minutes before I arrive or just after I say I'm on my way. Camera coverage, yes on the front step, no in the corridor to her room. I circle the blind spot. Then I draw the house as a map you'd hand to a lost traveler. Front door, ring, hall, no eyes, stairs, the gray throat, kitchen, timer, child's room, the stage. I add small icons, lock for the door sound, a dot for the timer, a sticker for the calendar. It looks like a board game where one player knows the rules and the other keeps landing on go back 3 spaces. I test the clock theory first. The next day I come home early again but stay outside the gate and call from the sidewalk. Traffic, I lie to my own voice. I'll be late. I hang up and count the beats a drummer would hear. 1 minute, 2, then faint, through the letterbox. The practiced click of upstairs metal. The second click follows, lower, like punctuation. When I open the door on my key, the house is already in its calm costume. "She's delicate today," my wife says, not surprised to see me because the story leaves room for all possibilities that flatter it. "Let's keep it quiet." "Of course," I say, and set my phone on the console table, camera lens pointed at the ceiling. I don't need surveillance. I need sequence. I ask for tea and watch which hand reaches for which towel. Today it's the twin of the mop towel. I make a note. Twin towels, reversible alibi. At bedtime I ask for just a minute with the book, and my wife agrees because agreeing is part of control's charm. I pick a story with numbers in it. 3 bears, 3 chairs, 3 bowls, because our daughter counts to reassure the world it is still countable. When we reach the door picture, she taps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many today? I ask. She whispers, 6, and adds a short line, then pulls her hand back as if the air might fault her math. I kiss her hair and count the lines again. 6. The gap between the daytime smiles and this night math is the size of a decision. The next morning, I stage a coincidence. I come back from work mid-morning with a paper bag of croissants, an edible warrant, and say, "Forgot my folder." She meets me at the door with lemon in the air and a smile cleaned for company. "We were just about to do quiet time," she says, as if quiet time had simply arrived on the weather. "Then I'll be quick." I take long enough to be a problem for the plan. Up the stairs, past the muffled hinge, past the corridor that absorbs information like a good sponge. I find my daughter in her room with a book open, but her eyes elsewhere. "Hey," I say, casual. The hallway floor answers with a groan, and I hear it. The lock's rehearsal, soft, certain. I stay where I am and let the sound finish its circuit. I look at my watch. 11:58. Not a nap time. Not a ritual. A reflex. On the way down, I sit on the top stair where the light stencils the banister. I breathe. I listen. The house tries to behave. I give it the dignity of being heard and write the time into my palm with a fingernail. 11:58. Lock when Dad upstairs. I start collecting contradictions the way some people collect coins. Quiet, specific, not for sale. Food. Portions shrink on days I'm expected and expand on days I'm not. Vocabulary. Fragile, delicate, inconsolable, each one deployed just before a visit is due. Calendar. Stickers migrate in my direction like a weather map chasing me with cloud icons. Pharmacy bag. Present when I arrive unannounced. Absent when I text first, as if prop placement needed a cue. That night, I test the camera mythology. I ring the bell from the doorstep and watch the delay between ding and click. It's short when I'm expected, longer when I'm not. I leave, circle the block, then come back with my key and enter without sounding the chime. In the hallway mirror, I watch the family version of me appear, the one trained to apologize for time. I let him hang up the coat. I keep walking. In the kitchen, the timer is face out like a teacher on playground duty. I take a photo of it, banal and exact. 12:05. On the paper calendar, I take another photo. Speech therapy moved, quiet block added, playdate, TBC. The stickers sit at proud attention. 12:06. Upstairs, the soft metal chime of the lock. 12:07. I stand very still and memorize the silence that follows, the overconfident hush of stage hands clearing scenery. When I return to the hall, she's there with that bright, tidy concern. "I would have made tea," she says. "I know," I say. "You're good at tea." We orbit each other around the kitchen island like polite planets. I ask about school. She answers in the soothing tone you use on dogs afraid of thunder. When I reach for the tap, she reaches for the towel. We choreograph care like a duet people clap for because it looks difficult. After dinner, I suggest we try bedtime with me reading while she sits in the doorway. A compromise, I say. Control loves the word compromise when it's the only one allowed to suggest it. She agrees. In the last paragraph of the book, the bear realizes he can get home by retracing the places where he felt most himself. He follows his pattern, I read. My daughter's fingers tighten on my sleeve. Patterns are handrails. I kiss her and tuck the blanket exactly the way the blanket likes. When I step into the hall, my wife is scanning her phone, thumb flicking a screen that isn't shaped like us. "Children's Services checklist," she says when she catches me looking, as if invoking an institution adds clean lines to a messy drawing. "They like documentation." "Me too," I say, and smile in fluent husband. I put the notebook on the table and top the page with a title I didn't know I'd use. Not accidents, habits. Under it, I line up the 3 shapes that have been forming behind my eyes. M1, missed meals, pain at noon, starts at 12:10, coincides with delicate, quiet, doctor says, portion shrinkage on visit days. M2, barriers to contact, texts timed to intercept me, stickers migrate to block the hour I can make, rules expand, no cuddles, no questions, screens are poor hygiene. M3, implanted object, bracelet found wet in mop bucket, same bracelet later dry in cloth behind dresser, corridor blind spot, towel twins, lock rehearsals. I draw arrows. M1 feeds M2. The hungry child is labeled fragile, which justifies rescheduling. M2 feeds M3. The chaos of deep clean plus quiet time creates the perfect stage for a planted find. M3 retrofits M1 and M2 with moral proof. The nanny steals, therefore rules were needed, therefore delays were sensible. A loop tight enough to wear as jewelry. I test one more thing because faith without experiments is theater. The next day I text that I'll be late and then arrive at exactly 12:10 with a bag of groceries, the kind of good father prop our door knows how to smile at. The crying is already present, not loud, just consistent. The lock clicks. Click. I hold my breath until the sound stops introducing itself. In the kitchen, I set the bag down and say, cheerful as a radio presenter, "I brought soup." The timer blinks like it can't remember which side it's on. I serve bowls and watch portion sizes tilt in my direction. With me in the room, grazing becomes, "Finish your bowl for daddy." My daughter eats like a kid who has permission. When she finishes, she opens her mouth to say good, then looks to the doorway, sees whose silhouette is in charge of adjectives, and edits the word back into a safe smile. After lunch, I ask for a tour of the deep-cleaned cupboards because men who want to help are irresistible to household narratives. "Where does the mop live again?" I ask, dumb on purpose. She shows me. I look at the bucket like a student and nod like a believer, then ask the thing she doesn't expect. "Where do we keep the extra towels?" "In here," she says, and pulls the twin from the shelf. It is pristine and smells like citrus apology. I turn it in my hands and match the tag to the one by the sink. I put them down in the wrong order and don't correct it. Later, if the story needs a towel, it will reach for the wrong twin first. That night, when the house sleeps, I take photos of everything that thinks it is ordinary. The calendar, the timer, the door, the lamp. I video the stairwell with my phone and count my steps to time the distance between click and quiet. I sit on the floor of my daughter's room and listen to her breathe, a proof nobody can edit. Then I write the sentence that completes the math. Not a bad week. A designed week. Under it, I write the plan for a different kind of quiet. One with witnesses. I don't pick a fight. I pick a time. Thursday, 6 p.m., when the house performs its best manners for the neighborhood. I text, "Let's do a family check-in about routines. I'll bring dinner." No one argues with dinner. Before I leave work, I call the helpline the school governor once mentioned, the one for concerns that aren't emergencies until they are. I explain I'm not trying to move mountains. I'm trying to measure one. The woman on the line has the kind of voice that doesn't panic. "A duty safeguarding worker can stop by for an informal visit," she says. "Observation only." I give the address, the hour, the reason. Patterns. She doesn't laugh at the word. "We'll attend," she says. "We don't need to be announced." At 5:50, I arrive with paper bags and a calm face I've ironed all afternoon. My wife opens the door in the uniform of reasonableness. Soft cardigan, soft voice. "Perfect timing," she says, and then, "Let's keep it calm." Calm is our house's national anthem. I set the food on the counter and start laying plates. "No rush," I say. "I wanted us to eat together, and to talk through what's working." I put the timer in the center of the table like a candle. She turns it so the numbers face her. I turn it back. We smile like teammates. Our daughter sits, solemn as a witness, hands in her lap, until I nod toward the breadbasket. She takes a piece and waits. I wait too, because time is a tool and I'm done letting it bruise us. "Before we start," I say, cheerful as radio, "could I show you something? It'll help me ask better questions." I hold up my phone and open the notes. 3 bold lines sit there like a spine. M1, meals. M2, barriers. M3, bracelet. She laughs the laugh you use when people have been on the internet too long. "You made bullet points," she says, fond and condescending. "I did." I tap the first. "Meals. I keep hearing delicate at 12:10. I keep seeing smaller plates when I'm due and larger plates when I'm not." I slide a screenshot across the table. Nothing dramatic, just photos stamped with times. Portion sizes, timer positions, the calendar's daily migration. She doesn't look down. She looks at me like an HR manager coaching an exit interview. "We keep her regulated," she says. "Doctor says routines prevent spirals." "Which doctor?" I ask. "The GP," she says. Then when I don't blink, "A specialist." Then when I still don't blink, "A consultant." Language inflates when it's nervous. I tap the second line. Barriers. Texts that arrive right before I turn the corner. Stickers that move to the hour I can make. Rules that multiply around cuddles like weeds around a fence. I keep my voice level. I think we can keep structure and keep faces. She inhales through her nose, smooth as a curtain closing. "Screens before bed are poor hygiene," she recites. "Overstimulation prolongs inconsolability." She says inconsolability like she's laying a tile. I nod. That sounds careful. I flip to the Ring app. And this sounds factual. I put the phone on the table between us, press play, and turn up the volume. The doorbell video from Deep Clean Morning shows an earlier hour, my wife stepping outside to wave at the parcel van, stepping back in with her phone, pausing at the cleaning cupboard, opening it, taking something small and metallic from her own pocket, and placing it into the caddy with a perfect little stage breath. She closes the door, turns, and smooths her hair. No bracelet visible on her wrist before, no confusion on her face after. "Pause," I say, and the frame freezes with her hand inside the cupboard like a magician who forgot the flourish. I don't look at her yet. I look at the timer, which pretends to be a bowl. "That angle is misleading," she says quickly. "You can't see what I'm holding." I rewind 5 seconds and play it again. The app timestamps the moment like a caption. 09:41. Her eyes do the calculation they always do and turn up the wrong answer. "That's not the bracelet," she says. "No," I agree. "Because the bracelet is there." I pull the cloth from my pocket, the one from the gap behind the dresser, sealed now in a clear sandwich bag like a field specimen. "Dry, where she told me you put it, later." I place it gently beside the phone. "This is the cloth, and this," I tap the phone, "is the habit." Her smile goes glassy and dangerous. "Are you recording me?" "Yes," I say, looking at the phone in my other hand, the one with the red dot glowing openly on the table. In my own kitchen, speaking to my own wife, about our own child. I am. The front door knocks. 3 civil knocks. Not police, not neighbor. I open it. 2 people stand there. A woman with an ID on a lanyard and a man with a notebook. "Children's Services," the woman says in the tone of someone who knows her title scares even the innocent. You requested an informal welfare visit? We're in the dining room, I say, and step aside. My wife's face performs surprise and then quickly performs welcome. Of course, she says, already folding the dish towel, already rearranging the language. We're very careful. We'd like to observe routines, the social worker says, taking the quiet seat, the one that sees both the hall and the child. And hear from each of you. She glances at the timer like it's a person. I start where I'm strongest, numbers. I slide my notebook across. Timestamps, portion sizes, text times, lock sounds. I say lock like a weather report. The man with the notebook writes without editorializing. It's a comfort. My wife keeps her voice soft enough to iron out the data. He's tired, she says about me to the professionals, wearing concern like pearls. Work has been heavy. Sometimes heavy makes patterns out of thin air. She smiles at me, generous as a donor. We all want what's best. What's best, I say, is for the door not to click between a child and her people. I turn my phone so the social worker can see the ring video. She watches all the way through. She doesn't say, aha. She says gently, I'd like to see the cupboard, if that's all right. Certainly, my wife answers, brisk now, chair legs scraping their own commentary. We walk to the utility nook. The social worker looks. The caddy looks back, innocent as a stage after a matinee. No bracelet, of course. No sea monster. Just the memory of a trick the camera caught doing scales. Back at the table, the social worker asks for the week's meals. What does lunch look like? My wife opens the fridge like a brochure. Yogurt, bread, sliced fruit arranged with the virtue of a farm shop. I open my phone and show 2 photos. Tuesday's plate, spare late, and Wednesday's plate, full, on time, the day I arrived early with soup. The contrast doesn't vote. It testifies. And contact with Dad? The social worker asks. My wife smiles the way you smile when you win debates no one else knows they lost. We always encourage it, she says, and her thumbs rest on her phone like athletes waiting for the gun. The man with the notebook asks to see message logs. I hand over my phone. She hands over hers, screen already arranged to a different conversation, the one where she's kind about a neighbor's cat. The social worker turns to our daughter. Would you like to draw while we talk? She asks, as if, would you like to breathe is a question. Paper appears like mercy. My daughter draws a house. Door, marks, 6. What are those? The social worker asks, gentle. My daughter taps each line. Times, she says. How many? Her face doesn't flinch. She's become a person who gives correct answers quietly. The social worker nods, looks at me, then at my wife. We'll arrange a follow-up and a visit from a family support worker, she says in that steady voice. In the meantime, I'd like the following. No locked doors when the child is in a room alone. No changes to calendar without both parents informed. Meal times documented with times for a week, and no sedatives unless prescribed with written guidance from the GP. She says GP like a thesis footnote. My wife opens her mouth, polite, poised, but the social worker isn't finished. Also, tonight, Dad will read bedtime and say goodnight by phone if needed. We'll observe. Control doesn't like being audited. It likes to audit. My wife exhales through her smile. Of course, she says. We're very careful. Good, the social worker says, standing. Care is best when it's visible. She reaches for the door, then glances at the ring unit. That record's out, she says. If you have internal cameras, be sure safeguarding policies are followed for all household members. It's a sentence with a mirror inside it. After they leave, the house tries to reset itself. It finds it cannot reach the button. I pick up the book and the timer. Bedtime? I ask. My wife nods too fast. Brief, she says. Brief, I agree, and open to the page where the bear turns toward home by following his own footsteps. Our daughter's head finds my shoulder. I read the last paragraph. The timer ticks, conspicuously ordinary. When the light is out and the quiet is the kind that blesses, I join my wife in the hall. We stand like a painting labeled domestic calm. You humiliated me, she whispers without moving her lips. I collected facts, I say, just as quietly. They're loud when you put them in a room. She looks at the timer like it betrayed her. You won't make me the villain. I don't have to, I say, and it sounds less like a victory than a weather report. The pattern did. Downstairs, my phone blinks with an email from the social worker. Next steps, dates, a sentence about support. I reply with thanks and attach the notes, the photos, the video. Then I write a final line for the day, for the math, for the habit. Public truth, private control, no longer compatible. I come back on a Tuesday that smells like rain and new rules. The door opens on the first knock. No rehearsal, no pause for optics. He's the one who answers. Tie loosened, relief loud as a hug he's trying not to rush. You're here, he says, and the words land like furniture in the right room. I step into a house that is learning how to be a home again. The timer sits in the middle of the table like a citizen, not a cop. The paper calendar has stickers that look like plans instead of warnings. The utility cupboard door is open on purpose, caddy in plain view, nothing living, a double life. A leaflet from Children's Services is magneted to the fridge. Family support worker visit. Thursday, 3:00 p.m. Promises, printed and polite. She's at the table drawing when I arrive. She looks up with a surprised smile that doesn't ask permission first. The marker in her hand hangs in the air, then finishes the line it was making. A door, same house, same roof, familiar path. She adds 3 small marks by the door and stops. 3, not 6. I don't ask why. I know why. Lunch is ready, I say, and the sentence is just a sentence now, not a test. We plate bread and soup and the apple in boats, the way we always planned to. No one moves the bowl farther away to prove a point. No one turns the timer around like a punishment. We bless the soup with nothing but steam. After we eat, we take the thank you lap we invented months ago and abandoned when the house started auditioning for control. Chair, thank you for holding up, she says gravely. Kettle, thank you for singing. We thank the dish towel, the crayons, the window that knows the weather better than forecasts do. When we pass the front door, she presses her palm to it, then pats it twice like a dog forgiven for barking. Not today, she tells the lock. The lock behaves. There's paperwork, of course. Accountability has a taste for forms. The family support worker comes with questions that make room for answers. She asks about meals. We show times. She asks about contact. We show calendars that don't migrate in the night. She asks about vocabulary. We say steady and capable and brave. And each word seems to add a slat back to a fence that had been quietly removed. Some evenings are still careful. Habits don't evaporate just because evidence walks into a room and introduces itself. The phone buzzes with the world's reasons to be late. Buses are still buses. Weather still negotiates with roofs. But when he texts 5 minutes out, the house holds its place like a bookmark that knows the story is getting good. When he's 10 minutes late, bedtime waits 10 minutes with him. We practice a new routine. Flex where it comforts, hold where it protects. Somewhere in there, our daughter laughs openly. Not a short, startled animal sound, but a proper laugh, with shoulders. We retire certain phrases. Delicate goes into a drawer and finds the back of it. Inconsolable leaves with a forwarding address and no one writes. Spirals is allowed only when we're talking about notebooks or galaxies. In their place, we keep time with simpler clocks. Hungry, tired, silly, done. They're not medical. They're human. They're enough. The door doesn't click between people anymore. It still knows how, but it has learned manners. We grease the hinge that squeaked like a tattletale. We replace the bulb in the stairwell that made the throat of the house too gray for small nerves. We fold the towels in different colors on purpose so which one never gets to be a trick again. The mop bucket returns to the ordinary life of buckets. Water, soap, honest work. One afternoon, she asks a question that tells me we're headed where we meant to go all along. Do clocks have hearts? The old question, but with a new tone. They do, I say, wiping the table. But only if people use them for keeping, not for keeping out. She thinks about that, then picks up the blue crayon, the one we made rebellious on a hard day, and draws a tree next to the house, thick-trunked, unembarrassed. She dots the branches with circles that might be apples or moons or both. I don't ask which. Confidence is a fruit with many names. That week we walk to the corner shop together for milk and come back with milk and a rubber ball that makes the cat reconsider its quiet life. We wave at the neighbor who once watched stagecraft in our doorway. They wave back with a little too much enthusiasm, which is how people apologize without admitting anything. That's fine. The street doesn't need a confession. It needs a better story. At bedtime, we keep the rituals we like because they noticed us when rules were playing dress-up. We read one page together, one page silently. We let the blanket be heavy enough to persuade fidgets. We let the window be open enough to let the night in without letting the weather win. When the book ends, he says, "Tomorrow." And it means tomorrow, not maybe. She says, "Tomorrow." And it doesn't sound like waiting anymore. It sounds like a plan. We don't fix everything. We fix our routine. We keep receipts, not to win arguments, but to maintain trust. We match our ideas about kindness with actions that don't leave fingerprints shaped like ownership. When she struggles, we make the circle smaller and the time softer. When she soars, we get out of the way and film exactly nothing, because not every good thing is a post. Once, weeks later, we pass the cupboard where the white paper bag used to live. It holds tea again. The shelf smells like bergamot and not like approval. I move the caddy an inch just to see if the house panics. It doesn't. It breathes. On the fridge, the leaflet collects other papers. School trip forms, a receipt for shoes that will be outgrown before the ink fades, a photo printed at the pharmacy kiosk of the three of us looking a little stunned to be getting it right. In the photo, her mouth is open, mid-laugh. He's in the frame, not at the edge of it. I'm holding the camera at the wrong angle, and you can see my finger in the corner like a witness who didn't mean to be seen. I leave it that way. Some nights I still hear the old click in my head and walk the thank you lap at 11 p.m., barefoot, inventorying the sane. The chair held up. The clock kept time. The door stayed humble. I touch the timer and leave it facing the room. It ticks like a citizen again. Before I sleep, I write 3 words in my notebook, the same corner I used to write triangles, apples, door, when the week was teaching me how to watch. Now I write steady, seen, safe. On my best days, I add a 4th, ordinary. Ordinary is the prize. Ordinary is what you get after the trial ends and the verdict is routine. Kindness isn't loud. Patterns are. The difference is a kind of music. When something in your house sounds wrong, too neat, too timed, too practiced, keep notes, keep time, keep going. You don't have to be brave every minute. You only have to be consistent long enough for the truth to have a place to stand. Tomorrow at 12:10, we'll plate lunch on purpose and count colors like it's a science that includes weather and feelings. We'll call the simplicity by its actual name, care. And if the clock ever tries to lie again, I'll be there with a plate and a pen and an apple that cuts into boats. I'll keep the hour steady. I'll keep the door light. I'll keep the promise that began when the house was pretending to be a house and we remembered how to be people.